Welcome to the first part of the IIIEE LAC presentations on environmental issues. This first presentation will introduce the topic of ecological consumption. This presentation is brought to you by Environmental Management and Policy Master's students at the International Institute for Industrial Environmental Economics in Lund, Sweden. The material is part of a project in learning, applying, and communicating. After the presentation, we kindly ask you to provide feedback about this presentation. The purpose of this series of presentations is to illuminate some of the environmental issues of today and to provide high school educators with interesting facts, ideas for discussions and activities, as well as inspirational material to use in their work. Now to begin with the topic of ecological consumption. All of the resources which people use for their daily needs and activities originally come from the earth. Can you think of anything you use today that didn't come from the earth? Population growth and increased consumption in many parts of the world have increased humanity's ecological demand and impact on the planet. As stated by the World Wildlife Fund in their Living Planet report, the total global consumption of natural resources has risen 50% since 1970, while the Earth's natural wealth has decreased to over 30% in the same amount of time. With this in mind, scientists acknowledge that there is a limit to how quickly and in what quantities the Earth can provide these resources. Currently, it takes 1.5 years for the Earth to regenerate the renewable resources we use in just 1 year. The ecological footprint has emerged as a leading measure of human consumption of Earth's resources. Considering prevailing technology, it measures the amount of arable land and aquatic resources that must be used to sustain a population. It is based on that population's consumption levels at a given point in time. The measurement incorporates water and energy use, uses of land for infrastructure, different forms of agriculture, and all other forms of energy and material inputs that people require in their day-to-day lives. It also includes the land needed to absorb the waste that a population produces. The measurement is only as accurate as the data that is put into it, so online you'll find varying degrees of accuracy. With so many inputs, it can only be a rough estimate, but it is still very useful for giving us an idea of resource use and for making comparisons. Scientists estimate that humanity now uses the equivalent of 1.5 planet Earths to supply its lifestyle and absorb its waste. This is called overshoot. How can humanity be using the capacity of 1.5 Earths when we know there's only one Earth? Just as it is easy to withdraw more money from a bank account than the interest this money generates, it is possible to harvest renewable resources faster than they are being generated. More wood can be taken from a forest in each year than regrows, and more fish can be harvested than replenished. But doing so is only possible for a limited time, as the resource will eventually be depleted. Why does this map of the world look so strange? It's because it shows the total national footprints as a proportion of the global ecological footprint. The countries that look a bit bloated and larger use a larger proportion of the global footprint. National per capita footprints are indicated by color. The darker red represents countries that have a footprint over 10 hectares per person. And then the lighter the color, the smaller the footprint that country has. So citizens of United Arab Emirates, the United States, and Kuwait require approximately 10 hectares per capita, while Haiti, Somalia, and Afghanistan only 1 hectare per capita. Can you find your country? 3 scenarios are presented in the latest World Wildlife Fund's Living Planet report. The good news is that reducing our footprint, whether that shift is fast or slow, is predicted to lead to sustainability. The difference will be how much impact we have in that time it takes to achieve this. Continuing with business as usual is likely to accelerate humanity's negative impacts on the planet. Exhaustion of natural resources has already happened locally in some places. For example, the collapse of cod stocks in Newfoundland in the 1980s. At present, people are often able to shift their sourcing when this happens, moving to a new fishing ground or forest, clearing new land for farming, or targeting a different population or still common species. But at current consumption rates, these resources are projected to eventually run out too, and some ecosystems will collapse even before the resource is completely gone. Ecosystems under stress result in decreasing biodiversity. When humans deposit more waste or deposit it at a faster rate than Earth's natural processes can handle, then we see results like global warming, climate change, or ocean acidification. Changing ecosystems also affect humans, especially when there is a resulting scarcity of resources. Less resources amongst a human population often leads to increased poverty, famine, disease, and political unrest. But that doesn't have to be our future. Small and big changes in how we live and develop our world can change that scenario. It involves changes to how we measure prosperity and success so that it reflects the real world that is out there. There are suggestions of how to do this. One is the Happy Planet Index, which measures human well-being along with environmental impact. Changes will also require putting prices on the goods and services that have been provided by nature and we've taken for granted so long. If we can better manage our demands for the types of food and energy we consume, then the demands on our planet will also reduce. These don't necessarily have to be drastic changes at the moment. To a certain extent, you may already be making changes to live more sustainably at home and at school. Our footprints can be further reduced through improved energy efficiency, using renewable energy sources, reducing, reusing, recycling, consuming less meat, or buying local and seasonal food products. How we manage the resources that make the Earth productive is a key factor in finding solutions to our growing resource demands. We must also look closely at the equitable distribution of energy, water, and food across nations and between people. Of course, this will require leadership from countries with more power and resources. We need to ask ourselves, how can we best be part of the solution? There are several suggested activities that can be done to demonstrate and reinforce the information in this presentation. These can be done with a teaching group and also in the classroom. More resources for additional activities have been collected for your convenience on the next slide. On this page are suggested teaching resources to implement ideas from this presentation into the classroom. They are not comprehensive, but represent high-quality resources that we feel can be readily and easily implemented to save you time in planning a lesson or unit incorporating this topic. For more comprehensive information about the ideas presented in this topic, please take a look through our sources of inspiration. Links and a full bibliography are provided in the notes to this presentation. Thanks for watching this presentation. We hope you have found it inspirational and helpful. You can help us out by spending a minute on our online survey. There you can also get in contact with us if you have any other questions or comments.